Service Sam here with a Nolan Xavier Wells update, and there's this odd letter. It looks like a journal entry that just hit the internet. Let me know what you guys think. It says July 4th, we go to the party, the island, we had alcohol. I may have drank half, if not a whole seltzer throughout the entire time. Was worried about returning for his second season, and he didn't want to ruin his chances. Cell service sucks here. Imagine something happening to you and not being able to call out for help. Nolan side-eyes and dismisses the comment. Nolan snaps a photo or a video of scenery or something. Wyatt had been sniffing the bug shug all morning. Wyatt tries to grab his phone and has to put it, and Nolan jerks his phone because this feels like what would lead to Nolan's death later. Approximately 12 hours later, Nolan was already hanging on an inkling he shouldn't go to the pool party. Him and Wyatt have had some animosity for a while because Nolan was back and forgave easily and didn't hold grudges. He was the peaceful friend, the conflict solver in most of his social group. He had several, maybe 3 friends, grumps. I can't read the rest of that. Nolan was only put on the boat to be transferred back to the island around 3 to 5 a.m. July 6th. That's why he wasn't found initially on the island. He was stored somewhere cool and dark to keep from decompositioning a minute, but it was summer. He already started to have a hint of smell permeating the shaded area. It's an area of property him and his friends hiked or hung around in, and yes, it's one of his friends' properties. Somebody got a farm or hiking trail, maybe both. Somebody cried, somebody is scared to speak, somebody was threatened. All of them are being haunted. Nolan decided to unfriend this group, and they couldn't accept it, the ultimate motive. Again, it's hard to read this letter. The writing kind of looks that of a female.
Let's listen to another analyst and hear what she uncovers.
All right, after this, I'm probably going to take a couple days off because my brain needs a rest after the last couple of days. Now we know for sure that there was storage in the bow of the boat. All right, so now at this point, I am pretty sure that the Triton was there all day. They didn't switch out the boats. And I'm also pretty certain at this point that this is a real video because there's one single frame where you can see Bart's boat and you can also see the toes of somebody like dangling them off the water. So if the picture or video were AI, it would be a really bizarre thing for it to just kind of throw in. But there's zero question in my mind that this video has been altered. So then the question becomes, why would they alter this video? And the only thing that logically makes sense to me is to alter the identity of the 2 girls. Because if Carter is the boy in red, Wyatt is the boy in the American shorts, Bart's brother Brooke being the one in the navy blue shorts, and then Ike being the one in the teal shorts. Then we've got Warren up here with somebody in this red striped swimsuit and the girl in the teal swimsuit with the backwards hat. So in this picture, this would be Brooks, this would be Ike, this would be Wyatt, this would be Warren, which would leave this to be Carter. Now, whoever this is seems to be very cuddly with Carter. Like, too cuddly, in my opinion, for it to be like a mother or a family member. Thinking about it a lot from the timeline that we have been told, and what we haven't really been factoring in again is the party. Because remember, Warren said he went to the party, but instead of talking with all of his friends, he went upstairs to go talk with his girlfriend's dad. Now, those families are tight, so if that dad of Ava, if that conversation with the dad didn't happen, then they would automatically know that they were lying. So I've been saying for a while that the girl was somehow involved. And mind you, everybody's back on land now. They're getting ready to do the fireworks, and everybody's swimming and drinking still, blah, blah, blah. So what's the excuse for no pictures at that party? They've explained it all away during the day, but at this point, they're all just being teenagers and having fun again, right? So I'm thinking that the brunette girl is Ava, the girl whose house they went to. And she's pretty close with Warren and the Pyrone family.
And they're full speed running. And then after that, I didn't see them anymore. I think you were on the boat. You start from there?
Yeah, so after we planed off, Wyatt kept the boat pinned the whole way in. We ran into the mouth of Fort Bayou, where we came from originally. And we turned into Fort Bayou, went in the channel, ran probably 500, 600 yards into Fort Bayou. Wyatt jumped out of the boat, put the plug back in the boat so access water. So water didn't keep water didn't keep pushing and filling back the boat.
According to their own words, they went into the mouth and then they turned and they went about 500-600 feet. Now, mind you, the party house is right around, but they go past it and then loop back around. However, Warren just admitted that at some point they had to stop and Wyatt jumped in. And even then, you heard him stuttering over the story. Like, it wasn't a smooth transition. Because I think they dropped her off. Which would explain why they would go back to this party, because obviously they can't cancel the party. That looks really suspicious. Then, my theory has always been that the guys all, like, broke off and, like, talked to the parents about what was going on. And that's when they formulated their whole, we'll call her and then we'll call the Coast Guard plan. Remember, she is related. Somehow I can't figure out, but she is related through marriage to the lieutenant that wrote up the very initial report we've seen. Because remember how Morgan claimed that the picture of the boat stuff was circulating around Snapchat and stuff, even though Christine didn't post it to her Facebook page until the next day. Listen to this.
His mom was, what was he wearing? And so we were trying to remember what color his shorts were. We couldn't quite figure that out.
I said black.
Yeah, I think we said black.
I really did. He was wearing navy blue shorts.
Yeah, it was like dark blue shorts.
Dark. I just said black because I was trying to piece everything together and help out.
And so at this point, we're freaking out. We don't know where our friend's at. And the girl that took the picture, she was like, okay, well, I just took this picture of today. This is what color swim trunks he was wearing. And his mom asked for that to post on Facebook to say, if you've seen him, whatever, this is what he was wearing.
So remember, the girl who took the picture with the digital camera was on Wyatt's boat at the beginning of the day and then was there with them at night when they were having this discussion. So she had to have been there at the beginning and at the party at the very least. Then we remembered that the original shorts picture, well, that wasn't the color of his shorts, as we now know. But we also know for a fact that this picture did not get sent to Christine until July 5th, meaning that they had to have had that picture and then not sent it to her for hours. Because they also said this.
And so that's what we sent to her, or that's what she sent to her, because we're just trying.
So they corrected themselves. He said, we sent it. No, she sent it. So on July 5th, Christine said that they have been up for almost 48 hours straight. And then the very next post above it are the same pictures, but better quality. Why did it take so long to get these pictures to them? Oh, and y'all, now that I said that, I realize, so all of these pictures had to come from the same digital camera, right? Meaning this picture did as well. And since I've already proven that this picture had used AI to do something weird because, you know, there was no little bar here, only explanation for using AI on just this little part would be to obscure the reflection that was in this pole of the person who was taking the video. Or the pictures. Oh my God, yes. That makes sense. Love it when I figure that stuff out in real time for you on camera. So it makes sense to me that this photo video thing was altered to cover up this girl's swimsuit. Because let's face it, this swimsuit is the ugliest thing. It has like supposedly like sleeves and it's a tankini, but it goes like in a weird cut, but it's ugly. It's ugly and it's clearly not what these debutante beauty queen girls are wearing to a 4th of July beach party. So I'm like 70% sure that this is Ava. Oh wait, oh my God. Wait a second. Shown y'all guys before that there's 4 boats out here, this little cluster, right? But I'm looking at these weird pink lumps and stuff at the front of the boat, Bart's boat here. Is that a pile of life vests? Because I'm realizing there's not 20, 30 people on all of these boats. Like, I'm seeing 10, 12 people here tops. Let's not forget what a full house looks like on these boats. Because even in this video at the meetup place, there's not 20, 30 people getting ready to get on these boats. I mean, the boat left at 9:56 according to the GPS. We got like 7, 8 people here, like 6 people here. And also, if they were legitimately needing to be towed and they were trying to get the water to run off, why are they all spread out on the boat? Why are they on the boat in general? Why didn't they just get off on land or get on another boat? Trying to get the boat to tip up and go planing, why do you have over half the boat on the front of the boat? These are experienced fucking fishermen. They know better than that. Yeah, I can't believe I've never thought of that before. If the boat was sinking, why are they even on the fucking boat? Yeah, and if it was so common and so easy to get, you know, rides back with other people, you know, strangers on Horn Island, why did they need to load everybody on the boat? Or were they yelling at Nolan to get on the boat? They didn't need to get him on the boat. And now that I'm looking at this, doesn't it look like Warren is on the phone? Could this have been when he was calling his mom 8 times? Also, one more thing that stuck out to me.
We called law enforcement. I was with Wyatt at the time after we left Jackson's house that night. I was with Wyatt and one of the one person we were with saw that their location was actually headed towards Wyatt's house. And so Wyatt got on the phone with 911 and was like, hey, these people are on the way to my house or already at my house. My mom and my dad are there alone and they know nothing about this.
He stumbled over his words from beginning to end in that story, so I don't believe any of it. But the one thing that sticks out to me was the phrasing, they don't know anything about this. If people are heading over to your house, why wouldn't you call your mom and dad before you called 911? Because it sounded like he was trying to keep his parents out of the loop of this story, which as a teenage boy implies that you have something to hide. Just a lot of different things to think about, right?
What you just saw could be important to the Nolan Wells case. But the real story isn't simply what's in that letter. It's what happens when that information is compared with everything investigators already know. Because this week, the Nolan Wells case moved in several important directions at once. The NAACP joined the Wells family's legal effort. The family says it is ready for a joint forensic examination of Nolan's cell phone. The Congressional Black Caucus is calling for federal involvement. And attorneys representing 3 of Nolan's friends are now pointing to what they describe as very credible independent witnesses who may have seen Nolan on Horn Island around 6 p.m. after the group's boat reportedly left. So the question now is whether these developments begin to connect. Because if they do, they could change how investigators understand Nolan's final hours. On August 17th, the NAACP's Office of General Counsel announced that it was working with Nolan's family's attorneys, including Ben Crump, and the legal effort involving Reverend Al Sharpton. The organization is pushing for a comprehensive investigation, greater transparency from authorities, and answers for Nolan's family. NAACP leaders emphasize the urgency of the situation and the need to leave no stone unturned. That gives the family's push for answers a much broader legal dimension. And another issue is now at the center of that effort. Nolan's phone. The family's legal team, including local counsel Ahmad R. Smith, says they are ready and willing to participate in a joint forensic examination of Nolan's cell phone. The phone was returned by his friends. According to the family's attorneys, dates were proposed this week, roughly August 18th through August 21st, with experts on standby. Possible resources include the Digital Forensics Lab at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College and potentially the FBI. But there's an important point that has been widely misunderstood online. The family has been portrayed as refusing to turn over Nolan's phone. The family's attorneys dispute that characterization. They say earlier discussions involved a cooperative examination, but the district attorney's office later made a short-notice demand, less than 48 hours, while Nolan's parents were out of state. The family's legal team accused District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath of not acting in good faith because, according to them, the demand did not match the earlier discussions. That's an allegation from the family's attorneys, not an established finding of misconduct. What matters now is whether the parties can actually move forward with the forensic examination, because the phone could potentially contain communications, photographs, digital activity, or other information relevant to Nolan's final hours. It could support an existing account, it could challenge one, or it could provide no definitive answer. But that's precisely why forensic examination matters. The evidence needs to be tested, and the phone becomes even more interesting because of another development this week. Attorneys representing 3 of the friends who were with Nolan say very credible independent witnesses saw him on Horn Island around 6 p.m. That's potentially significant. The group's boat reportedly left at approximately 4:30 p.m. If those witnesses really saw Nolan around 6 p.m., investigators would have another important timestamp to work with. But we need to separate the claim from the finding. The alleged sightings have been presented by attorneys representing the 3 friends. They have not been publicly established as a final investigative conclusion, so investigators would need to determine who these witnesses are, exactly what they saw, how certain they were about the time, and whether their accounts can be independently corroborated. If confirmed, those sightings could change how the hours after the boat left are understood, and that's why the timeline remains one of the biggest unanswered questions in this case. At the same time, pressure for federal involvement is increasing. The Congressional Black Caucus has urged the U.S. Department of Justice and FBI to open an independent federal review of Nolan's disappearance and death. The request points to concerns about the limited amount of information publicly available and calls for a response from federal authorities. Family members have also appeared publicly with Crump and others while pressing for answers. But this distinction matters. A request for federal review is not a federal finding that Nolan was murdered. It is a request for federal authorities to independently examine the circumstances surrounding his disappearance and death. Whether that request leads to a new federal review remains to be seen. For now, it adds another layer of scrutiny to a case already receiving national attention. The investigation remains active. Despite all the speculation, authorities continue to maintain that the investigation is active. Dozens of witnesses have been interviewed. There has been no public determination of foul play at this stage, and official conclusions regarding the cause and manner of Nolan's death remain pending. That becomes especially important when looking at the independent autopsy. Nolan's family commissioned an independent examination conducted by Dr. Roger Mitchell. The examination did not establish a definitive cause and manner of death. The findings raised questions, but they did not publicly establish who caused Nolan's death or prove homicide. So the autopsy is another piece of evidence, not a final answer. And it has to be considered alongside everything else: the timeline, the cell phone, witness accounts, the disputed audio, and now the latest information that has surfaced. The threats. There's also a separate but significant development involving threats connected to the investigation. Multiple people have been federally charged in connection with alleged threats, including bomb threats and threats involving witnesses, officials, and a judge. One example is Michelle Francine Edwards of Cincinnati. An arrest warrant was issued after she failed to appear, and her bond was later revoked. Those charges are separate from the question of what happened to Nolan. They do not establish who is responsible for his death, but they show how emotionally charged this case has become. And that creates a problem. The more intense the public reaction becomes, the easier it is for allegations to be treated as facts. A theory becomes a conclusion, a disputed account becomes a lie, and a new document becomes proof before anyone establishes what it actually proves. That's why scrutiny matters. So where does this leave the case? The letter you just saw is now another piece of information investigators and the public can examine. But its importance will depend on what can be verified. Does it fit the known timeline? Can its information be corroborated? Does it match witness accounts? Does it conflict with information recovered from Nolan's phone? Those questions matter more than how dramatic the document appears, because a new piece of information doesn't automatically solve a mystery. Sometimes it confirms what investigators already know. Sometimes it creates an entirely new line of inquiry. And sometimes, after closer examination, it turns out to be far less significant than people initially thought. That's why this case needs evidence before conclusions. Look at everything that has happened in just this latest stretch of the investigation. The NAACP has joined the family's legal effort. The family says it is prepared for a joint forensic examination of Nolan's phone. Congressional Black Caucus members are calling for federal review. Attorneys are pointing to alleged independent witnesses who may have seen Nolan around 6 p.m. The investigation remains active, with dozens of witnesses interviewed, and the family continues pushing for transparency and answers. None of those developments, individually, proves a particular theory, but together, they show why this case remains unresolved. If the phone examination moves forward, it could potentially clarify part of the timeline. If the alleged witnesses are verified, they could provide another important timestamp. And if the latest information withstands scrutiny, it could become another significant piece of the investigation. There is still no publicly established explanation that answers every major question surrounding Nolan's final hours. Authorities have not publicly determined that Nolan's death was a homicide. The cause and manner of death remain unresolved publicly, and any potential grand jury review remains pending. That's why it's important not to confuse public suspicion with an official finding. There are questions, competing accounts, and new developments. But the investigation still has to establish what happened, and that process matters, because Nolan's family deserves answers that can withstand scrutiny. Around August 19th, a national prayer rally and vigil were planned around what would have been Nolan's 19th birthday. His family should be celebrating his birthday with him. Instead, they are still waiting for answers about what happened to their son. That's what can get lost when a case becomes an online debate. Behind the timelines, documents, and competing theories is a family that wants to know the truth. And the strongest way to honor that request is not to decide the case before investigators do. It's to demand that every credible piece of evidence be examined. If evidence supports a theory, follow it. If evidence disproves one, acknowledge it. And if this latest development reveals something important, investigate it fully. The evidence has to lead the story, not the other way around. After everything that happened this week, one thing remains clear. Nolan Wells' final hours still contain unanswered questions. The cell phone could provide answers. The alleged witnesses could clarify the timeline. The latest information could open another line of inquiry, and the expanded legal effort could bring additional scrutiny to the investigation. But ultimately, Nolan's family is asking for something much simpler. The truth. If you want to stay updated as this case develops, please subscribe. We'll continue separating what's confirmed from what's claimed and following the evidence wherever it leads.